Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're all doing well. So, originally, I wasn't going to even watch this show, Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup, but I decided to, just so I could get more of the details and kind of follow along, even though I have to say it is pretty boring. And I think that's because we've already seen everything play out on social media and in the tabloids. So we all kind of knew what was coming, but there are some like little details within the show that are, I guess, worth seeing. And so I did write a few things down, but I'm not going to go over every single episode. There's been five so far. I don't think anything got really interesting or like noteworthy until episode 4 and 5. That's when some of the recent drama with Ken and Christy and whatnot comes to surface. So let's get started. I do want to say I find it really weird that in almost every single episode Ken is mentioned. When Gypsy and Ryan are in the car and she says, KU reached out, Ken Urker, and then at the tattoo shop, oh, I have this K on my ankle. It's a pick and poke tattoo for my ex, Ken. Like he just kept getting brought up. And if I were the significant other, I would have been like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, stop disrespecting me. Stop talking about your ex boyfriend, please. Uh, they were still in contact and they were for a while. So, yeah, I just found that pretty disrespectful to Ryan that she kept bringing him up, even though she would like follow it up with, oh, he dumped me, or oh, I wish I could get this tattoo removed. It was just like he was still on her mind. Another thing I did write down from the end of episode 3, I think it was, is that Ryan and Gypsy were planning to get remarried. And then Gypsy basically calls it off. She said the timing needs to be at a little more of a convenient time, which is apparently never. She didn't really want to remarry him. She didn't want to go through that again because I think that she had in her mind Kenny boy. Then we have episode 4. It starts off with Gypsy up late at night. I guess she had a nightmare about her mother, and she explains that it's happened often ever since that night. And then she talks about being on, she doesn't even know how to get on a road to self forgiveness, which I thought was kind of interesting. Then they head over to the Blanchard home, which I guess Gypsy has only been there one time in her life. And they have a pretty decent size home, looks nice. They look pretty well off. So I'm still confused as to why, if all of that was going on, I'll never understand why Rod didn't step in more. That's one of the pieces that I'm consistently missing and not understanding, I guess. If anybody can go more into depth on that instead of just saying Gypsy's mom kept him away, because if you have any like notion or idea that your daughter is being put in harm's way or being abused in any way, I would think that you would step in. With that being said, I feel like it's easy to judge Rod because of the whole storyline that was given to us. But in the show and in this whole group of people, I feel like he's one of the more level headed, normal people, which honestly surprised me. In this episode, they also go and take Gypsy to visit Grandma Emma's grave. And I believe this woman was Gypsy's mom's mom. And I remember seeing something in one of the shows about Gypsy's mom basically KILLINGing her or helping her pass because she wasn't doing well. She was really suffering. So I didn't quite understand that there, but Gypsy explains that her mom spiraled after her grandmother's death. She was smashing angels and just it really sent her over the edge. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see and hear about. Let me see what's next here. Oh, Gypsy standing there in front of her grandmother's grave with Ryan saying like a really weird prayer. It was just really awkward. And she said something along the lines with like, she feels like she failed her as a granddaughter and she's hoping she can do better. And she also mentioned that she hopes her mom is feeling the love or has found love in heaven. I feel like they could have just left that out. I feel like that's kind of a personal moment that they didn't really need to include. Then the family goes off to Gypsy's cousin Bobby's, who is a tattoo artist, and I guess he's a cousin on her mom's side of the family. Anyway, their conversation that I caught, Gypsy's explaining to Bobby that Dee Dee always had a picture of him in her wallet, and she knew that because whenever she would go through Gypsy's wallet, that's what she said at first. And then she was like, whenever my mom would take out her credit cards. So yeah, I caught that. And I found that kind of odd that she said that she was going through her mom's wallet. Then Bobby is talking about Dee Dee and saying how the family always thought she was different. And at one point, she was talking to a piece of an orange and calling it a baby. And they just always thought something was off with her, possibly bipolar. And I mentioned this in my last video. I don't think that's right that they always bring up Dee Dee and they talk shit about her because she's not here to defend herself or tell her side. So I don't think that should be done, but that's just my opinion. And then also, Bobby brings up Gypsy and her health and why nobody really ever did anything. They just always knew. Apparently, she was in and out of the hospital. But then he does say something about Christy or somebody in the family knowing that Gypsy could walk, and they were talking about the Special Olympics, and he was like, yeah, I bet she's beating everybody in there because she can walk. So he basically says he doesn't understand why nobody said anything, and he feels like they failed her. Gypsy goes on, she gets her tattoo, and it's not her first tattoo. They have to remind everybody she has that pick and poke on her ankle with a K standing for Ken. So that was the other time that I mentioned where Ken is brought up, and of course Ryan is standing right there. They disrespect him blatantly. And then when she's getting the tattoo, she's talking about all of the labs and the surgeries and the IVs she's had, and she's saying that all hurt worse than the tattoo, which I have to disagree on that. I've had a lot of lab work and IVs myself, and I don't think that hurts more than a tattoo. Personal opinion again, just my own perception. Oh, then Christy comes in with the picture. She's digging all these pictures up from underneath the bed, saying she has so many and she's been going through them. And this is when that scene comes in where Christy's talking about Ken and the pictures with Ken and how Ken was Gypsy's first true love, and I don't break up with my kids' exes, all that jazz. So we had that whole scene. Christy says that she likes Ryan as a person. He's a good man, but if Gypsy were only with Ken, she would feel more like she were safe coming out of prison. And then Rod's talking about Ryan, and he says, "Oh, Ryan's a good man." But basically, he's going to have his hands full with Gypsy because Gypsy makes quick decisions, and that was just too funny. His honesty really just cracks me up. I have to say that in these episodes, I always feel like Ryan isn't included in the family. Like when he takes their family picture, yeah, I mean it's the parents and the daughters, but why couldn't they get a picture with Ryan in it? Why couldn't they have a crew member take it? And then they're all eating, and Gypsy says, this is where I feel comfortable. I'm comfortable with my dad and Christy and Mia, but she never mentions Ryan as he's standing in the corner. It's like, it just doesn't give me the vibe that Ryan was ever fully included in that family. And that's quite sad, honestly. So now episode 4 basically ends when Ryan goes back to work and Gypsy is left home alone. She ends up cleaning up. We know what happens here where Christy calls in and she's like, oh, Ken reached out. And then Gypsy's all up in like shambles over this, like, Ken's single, oh my God. And then they like interview her, and these quotes that she said really caught my attention, where she says, no one is going to love him as much as I did at that time. And what's going to happen, and talking about Ken, and then she says, what's gonna happen when Ryan and I have an argument? Ken's single. Those two quotes just encapsulate what Gypsy is. Like, no one's going to love Ken as much as I did at that time. How do you know that? How do you know nobody could love Ken as much as you? That is the most self centered thing I've ever heard. And then talking about if you argue with your husband, somebody else will be on your mind. And, he's single. Whoever thinks like that should not be married, should not be in a relationship. End of the story. Okay, moving on to episode 5. And for episode 5, I have written down Ryan feels like Ken is possibly a threat, which I'm assuming Gypsy said that. And was Ryan right? Yes, he was. His intuition was right. Gypsy jumped into Ken's arms the moment she got a chance to. But what did they do after this and things were kind of bandaged up? They went and got the puppy. They got Pixie because Gypsy needed a puppy so badly and she wanted it, and Ryan wanted to give her everything she wanted, so they went and got the puppy. Ken wasn't out of the picture though, and he definitely wasn't out of Ryan's mind because on the way to get the puppy, they're in the car and Gypsy is texting somebody and Ryan says, "Who are you texting?" Because he's obviously feeling insecure and like maybe something's up. Maybe Gypsy is entertaining Ken doing something. And she says, she's texting her sister, whatever. And then I have noted here also that Ryan said, "Is it what's his face's name?" or something along those lines. And Gypsy's like, "You can say his name." And then he's like, "Okay, Ken." But it was just like, why would she do that? You can say his name. He has a name. Maybe Ryan doesn't want to say his name. Maybe it's not worth saying. Ryan asks her, "Is the situation done?" And she says, "The situation is done." That was a lie. Next, I noted down when Gypsy goes to hang out with Mia and she is in the car talking about like her body image and what she's wearing. And she once again brings up her mother, saying how her mom always said she never looked desirable, which that's very sad. But again, do we know that for sure? Do we know that Dee Dee ever said those things to Gypsy? That's what I don't like, guys. I just don't like that they keep bringing up Dee Dee and saying that she did this, she did that when she's not here to defend herself. And then before Ryan actually drops Gypsy off with Mia, he says, "Please don't let her talk shit about me." So Ryan knew that they weren't too fond of him and he just felt like something was up. You can totally see that in the episodes. And then what happens is Gypsy is actually the one that starts talking shit because when they're getting their nails done, she says things have been awkward with Ryan and everything in this whole situation. So like she brings up all of this in a conversation and then she starts talking about Ryan snoring and she just doesn't, they never lived together, so it's a whole new world actually living with Ryan and maybe things aren't what she thought it was going to be. Then during their hangout, this is when Gypsy also airs out all of Ryan and her personal business about their sex life and how she's never orgasmed and how she could possibly be pregnant. And then she takes a plan B and all of that stuff. And then the big argument happens. And after all of that aired, Gypsy's like, "The moment I feel controlled, I'm going to leave." But in my opinion, she already had it in her head that she was going to leave because she didn't feel happy. She wasn't willing to work on it. And she only wanted Ken. That's what I got from this. And then I think Ken comes in and he says, like, the reason why he wants to be interviewed and come back. And he says something along the lines of, his answer was like, "I never realized Gypsy would get this big," or something. So, what does that tell you? Anyway, I'm finding it really funny because Gypsy came out and on one of her TikTok lives, she said something along the lines of she isn't really worried about how she's going to look because the show is going to show all the details and people can judge for themselves. And if she made a mistake, then so be it. She's making mistakes along her journey.
Ryan was saying a bunch of stuff last night. I think I'm just starting to expect that every Tuesday he's going to hop on a live and try to defend himself because another episode came out and he didn't look exactly the best. I always said I am not going to trash talk Ryan. I'm going to let the show and his actions and my actions speak volumes more than defending ourselves, more than trying to argue with each other, throw shade at each other. I'm not about that. If he's some type of way, people are going to find out on their own by watching the show. And if I'm painted out to be the bad guy, well, then clearly I made some mistakes along those journeys that I've been making too. I'm not perfect. At least I could take accountability and say, hey, I'm still learning. I think everybody agrees that the only person that's safe from getting flack right now is my dad. He's the only one with a good head on straight, I guess. Him and my sister. The rest of us are all a little fucked up.
She thought this show was going to make Ryan look bad. She thought all of this coming out was going to make everyone feel bad for her and love her. But Ryan wasn't so bad after all. Are there some red flags there? For sure. But I think he truly, genuinely loved Gypsy. And I can't say the same for Ken. So I think that wraps up all of my notes for episodes 4 and 5. Hopefully it made sense. I feel like I was just kind of rambling there. But that's what I had written down. I just wanted to go over it quickly. And I will probably be going over the next few episodes. I think I heard Ryan say that there's 8 episodes. So we'll see. And let me know your thoughts if you watch this show. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.